Do you get annoyed when you see beautiful wooden pieces ruined by paint? I know I'm guilty of this. There was a time in my life where I would just paint anything and then the wood is kind of like gone. And if you want to get that wood back, you've got to deal with harsh chemicals and strippers and sanding and a huge mess. What if I told you that you could fight fire with fire? Just paint it again. Well, hello and welcome to this super fun video. My name is Clara. I am a houseplant enthusiast, mother of two, wife to a wonderful husband, and we just bought this home about a month and a half ago, and I'm finally starting some of my DIY projects that I envisioned for the space. Now, one of the first things I wanted to do when I saw this space was to repaint the black handrail of our beautiful stairs. I love the stairs, I love the effect that they give as you enter the home, but I just didn't like the black. I thought it's been too overdone recently. It was just a little bit too modern for me and it lacked a lot of character. What I truly wanted was just a wooden handrail, like what was probably original to the home, but maybe just in a modern stain color. However, I have such limited experience with stripping paint and sanding something like that. And with the complicated structure of a handrail with all those curves and nooks and crannies, I just figured that sanding and stripping that paint would be way too big of a deal. In addition, I'm also pregnant, and using a chemical stripper like that is highly unsafe in a closed area. I can't really open all the doors and windows or my other kids would get out. It seemed like too much. So I found an alternative that I'm so excited to share with you today, because you can battle paint with paint. This fix just involves painting again, but with a specific technique to create a wood look finish. This works really well for me because I paint things all the time. I'm very familiar with the techniques and the processes, and the chemicals in paint are way less harsh than chemicals in a stripper that strips paint. There's also less mess, less cleanup, and the result is beautiful. I have already done a section of this handrail earlier in the week, and I honestly was really impressed with how it turned out. I wasn't expecting it to look this good. It looks incredible, and I just want to take you with me as I paint the next section. I am going piece by piece with this project, just so that I can combat some of the pregnancy nausea and fatigue, and also because I frankly don't just have 6 to 7 hours to dedicate to doing this whole thing start to finish. So we're just doing another piece today. It's a small section, but it has all the components of the entire stair rail. So as you watch me complete this small section, I'll be able to show you essentially how to do the whole thing. So I'll take you with me slowly and demonstrate the technique that I've been using so that you can recreate it in your own home. You can use this technique on a stair handrail. You can use it on a mantelpiece, which I actually did also. And you can also do this on cabinetry, furniture, really anything that you can paint. You can make it look like faux wood. Now, I have to say that this is not my original technique. I'm actually stealing it from a YouTube video that I watched, put out by Black Sheep House. I'm gonna link her video in the description because I think she just really did a fantastic job demonstrating this technique. When she completed it, she was doing it on a dresser. So she was working on completely flat surfaces, which made her application just a little bit easier than what I'm doing today on the handrail, which is why I am making my own version of this video, because I am changing a few things in her approach. I'm also using a different paint color, but I do want to give all the credit to her for this amazing technique, and you should definitely go check out her channel. So for this project, you're going to need a few supplies. I'll put them up on the screen now, and I want you to go ahead and take a screenshot. The first thing you're gonna need is a primer, and you might think to yourself, I don't need a primer, I'll just do an extra coat of paint. But let me encourage you to do the primer step anyways, because I found that if nothing else, that primer coat was so educational for me as I did this for the very first time on my own handrail. Using that primer coat is gonna show you what areas are gonna be more difficult to reach. It's gonna really reveal what parts of your handrail or whatever you're painting is gonna require strokes in certain directions, That'll make more sense as we go, but just trust me, the primer coat is really important. You're gonna need your base color in a semi-gloss paint. The video that I watched by Black Sheep House, she used the color Harvest Brown. Great color if you want a true neutral. I personally wanted something slightly warmer, so I'm going with Burnt Almond. You'll need some Rust-Oleum decorative glaze in Java Brown. This is like the secret ingredient to the finish. You'll also need a small craft brush. I think the one that I'm using today is like 1/2 inch. That's gonna be to get in all the small areas and the intricacies of a stair hand railing. You'll need a 2.5 inch angled brush for the larger spots. And then you want to seal your work. We're gonna be using a water-based polyurethane clear matte. So come along with me now. We're gonna do that short section together today, but by the time this video is all done, I'm gonna be able to show you the final reveal, show you the whole entire staircase, because I'll be finishing this project this week. So I already have the primer application complete, and like I said, really important to help you visualize what direction to take your brush strokes, because your brush strokes are what is going to create some of that wood texture. It's actually really important to have brush strokes for this finish, and the primer, especially since what I was painting over was black, that primer layer really helped me see the imaginary wood grain. So in total, you're going to be going over your, we'll call it a handrail, assuming you're doing the same thing as me, 4 times, once with the primer, 2 coats of your base color, 1 coat of the Java Brown decorative glaze. And I guess with that polyurethane, it's a total of 5 times. But this is the order you should go with every single coat based on my experience. First, I am doing this small detail work first on my particular handrail, but on many other handrails in homes of similar ages. You have some rounded pieces in conjunction with some flat and angular pieces. I found it was best to do the rounded, curved pieces first, and then the flatter pieces second. Again, this is all in the context of doing the detail work first. I'm just using my small craft brush here. As you're painting, make decisions about which direction to take your strokes and imagine what that wood grain would look like. So just choose a direction and go with it. Try to stay consistent as much as you can. Here's a close-up shot of me completing this technique on the rounded part of the top of the handrail. And as I just said, I'm going on the curved and rounded sections first. I'm getting in all of those little tiny crannies, and I'm really paying careful attention to keep my brush strokes really smooth. It's hard when you're working with small areas, especially ones that wrap around. But in theory, you want to have long brush strokes the whole time. You want to avoid short, patchy strokes, because that's what's going to be your giveaway that this is paint and not real wood. With the column piece of this banister, I'm going to be using vertical brush strokes, but with those little donuts that go around and wrap around, I used horizontal brush strokes. Again, just try to imagine what direction the wood grain would be going if this were real wood. Yes, I know that this is a real wooden thing, but it's been painted. You can't see that wood grain anymore. So now you kind of have to use your imagination. Which direction would it be going? And paint brush strokes in that direction. I'm sure there's a proper word, but here's this top little thing. And again, same concept. Choose a direction that you might imagine the wood grain would be going in and stick with that same direction. Create purposeful brush strokes because you actually want the brush strokes. That's what's going to make it look like wood. So I'm going around on this little donut piece first, getting below it and above it. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the flat piece that's more of a horizontal surface. And again, I'm just choosing a direction. On this one, I was going back to front, but there's other places of the stairs where I chose to go in a left to right direction, just to kind of mix it up so it didn't look so manufactured. But whichever direction you choose to go on each individual area, you need to keep that same direction going. I'm pretty sure I've beat that horse to death. I won't keep saying it. And now I'm taking that paint up. Make sure you're looking at it from all angles, above, beneath, because on this little piece of my particular handrail, there was that, little edge underneath the rounded mushroom cap part that was almost kind of easy to miss. So just make sure you're looking at it from all angles. And this is a great piece of advice really for the whole stair rail, because if you're standing on the floor looking up at your stairs, you actually see an awful lot of the bottom. And if you're just standing there painting, you're really only looking down at the top. So I can't tell you how many times during this whole process, I went all the way to the top of the stairs and looked down to see if I missed anything, all the way to the bottom of the stairs, looked up, tried to check different angles of things, painting the top of it. And again, just choose a direction, stick with it. That underside needs a lot of attention, you guys, like I said, because when somebody enters your home, or I don't know where your stairs are located, but like if you're standing at the bottom of your stairs and you're looking up, I don't know, like 40% of what you're seeing is the underside of that railing. Ah, it was so tedious. It really was. Just put on some music that you enjoy. Watch a YouTube video. I've got plenty of good ones. You can watch one of mine. And just get, try to be as consistent as you can. What are they called? The spindles. We'll call them spindles. In my video, they're the white ones going from top to bottom that connect to the piece I'm painting. The spindles are going to get in your way so bad. I have taped them off so that I didn't have to be so careful. I did not tape them off the first section I painted. You can kind of see if you look over there at the very right of your screen. But anyways, tape them off. That's a tedious job as well. And then just try to create the longest brush strokes you can. I know it seems impossible because you're going to keep getting interrupted by a spindle, but creating the longest brush strokes that you can is really going to be the most important part. But let me just tell you, don't get too caught up in perfection on this base coat, because like I said, you're going to be doing 2 coats of this color. And the second coat you do is going to be way easier, much more satisfying. This coat here is basically just creating coverage and teaching you what direction to take your strokes. So it's important. Finally, I have that detail work done. So I washed my brush. I'm going to be using it again. And now I'm getting out the big guns. This makes things go a lot faster. Your 2.5-inch angled brush. And again, same concept. You're going to imagine what direction the wood grain would have gone in and paint in that direction. Man, whipping out this bigger brush really sped things along. It was kind of like a little bit of wind in my sails. I hope it will be for you too. I don't know. I feel like doing that detail work first is better, because your larger surfaces, when they intersect with the detail work, they could interfere with the direction of your fake wood grain. So I just like doing the detail work first. But hey, feel free to experiment. And, you may be the person who wants to do the whole thing with a big brush. You might not be as a perfectionist. Go ahead and try it out. The worst thing you could do, make a mistake and just paint over it again. So satisfying to be doing this big vertical column piece. Here I am painting the flatter pieces, not the column, but these flatter pieces, much easier. Once you have got that bigger brush out, it goes by pretty quickly. It's been a few hours now, so I'm coming back to do the second coat of the base color. This coat goes much faster and it's much more satisfying. Honestly, I think this whole process just becomes more and more satisfying as you go. The primer, most tedious. The tape, even more tedious than that. That first base coat is kind of annoying, but it really goes uphill from there. It's a lot more enjoyable, and you can really see those brush strokes coming into play by the time you've done your second layer all in the same direction. Now I want to take a moment here to show you the color difference between this step and the finished look, because you might be doubting your color choice. You might be thinking it's all wrong, but our next coat of that Java brown is going to create the best result. And so just trust your color choice. Of course, you could always do a sample patch somewhere. My husband was very convinced the whole time I was using the wrong color, and I totally see why he thought that. It doesn't look right until the next layer, but it's time for that now. All right, guys, this is hands down my favorite step. I don't know what it is about this Java Brown decorative glaze. Glaze is a great word. It's semi-transparent. It's kind of thick. And oh my goodness, I think the product is made for antiquing. At least that's what the can says. But if you actually make brush strokes on purpose, it is what's really going to create your wood finish. This is definitely a trust the process kind of project, because up to this point, it looks like you're just painting in the ugliest shade of brown. But once you add this decorative glaze, so instructional wise, start with the smallest amount possible. You can see here, I've got the lid to like a parfait cup. And all I did was put maybe like 1 tablespoon worth of this Java brown. It was enough for the entire section we're doing today. You're starting off with a very small amount on your brush, and then wipe that off, and then go ahead and apply it over top of your paint. Don't worry if you think you applied too heavy. There is an easy fix for that, but it is better to kind of start off with less than to try to fix applying more. We're going in the same direction, in the same order, with the same approach as all of our previous layers. It's kind of like those other layers are gearing you up for the final showdown. This is what's important. This is really what's going to give that wood look. So by now, you've been over this piece 3 times. This is your 4th time. So it should almost be second nature now. You know what direction you're taking your brush strokes. You've already imagined that pretend wood grain. And when you apply this decorative glaze with those long wood grain-like brush strokes, you're going to see it right away, probably better than you can see it at this portion of the video. It really comes together quickly. For me personally, I was doing it a little bit heavier in the crevices and the cracks, just because I thought that added some really nice depth and contrast. And you know, you really can go heavy if you want a dark wood tone. I wanted something that was right there in the middle, not exactly like washed out wood, but definitely not dark. I wanted a just middle of the road wood color, and so a light coat of this was perfect for that. But what I'm trying to say is, if you want a darker wood tone, you can go darker than this. Detail work first, and I'm using the same small 1/2-inch brush that I was using for the base coat. The brush is fully dry now. The brush was washed, the paint was washed out, the brush is fully dry, and my base coat of paint is fully dry. That's something else I do want to mention intentionally here. Please make sure that your base color is dry before you go in with the decorative glaze, because it will mix with your paint color if your paint is not fully dry, and that's not going to have the effect you want. It's just going to look like paint, but a slightly different color. But when your base coat is fully dry and you go over it with this decorative glaze, that's what's going to really create the faux wood look. This is really like I said at the beginning, the secret ingredient this decorative glaze. Here I am applying it a little bit heavy here, just because, I don't know. I know I just told you don't apply it too heavy, and that's true. But what's also true is that it's really hard to spread out if you apply it lightly. So I kind of was more flexible with myself. After a while, I started applying a little bit heavier because it made it easier to drag it out. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I've said before, do a sample section, see what approach works best for you. And if worse comes to worse, the cool thing about this decorative glaze is that you can wipe it off with a wet paper towel and it'll look like you never even did this part. Again, this is where the direction of your brush strokes really becomes important. You can see that this little piece, I'm doing vertical strokes, but the little donuts that went around, I'm using horizontal strokes. And it really fools you. It's really starting to look like wood. Of course, it's not, completely awesome yet because I'm only doing these smaller pieces. Wait until I get to the bigger sections. At this point, I wanted to show you how you can kind of feather out your detail work, where it's going to merge with that large brush that's coming up soon. I'm using my craft brush just to feather where these two pieces intersect. I really hope that that makes sense. Because if you tried to get into that corner with your big brush, probably wouldn't do it justice. So I am using the craft brush, the tiny one, just a little bit on my big surface, anywhere it intersects, just to feather that edge a little bit. This underside is back at it again. It's really annoying, like I said, to paint with your long wood grain-like strokes when these spindles keep interrupting you. But I will say this, you don't have to be a perfectionist on this part, this underside part. Although I said it will be visible when you're standing at the bottom of your stairs looking up, at the same time, nobody at the bottom of your stairs is going to get very close to this part. They're going to get close to the top of it as they ascend or descend your stairs. You just want to do the best you can. Just do the best you can here, but don't overdo yourself, because all you need is just a little bit of this decorative glaze. Try to use long brush strokes, but at the end of the day, nobody's coming at this section with a magnifying glass, so don't stress out too bad. Finally, guys, we are at the peak of satisfaction here at this part of the process when you whip out that big brush with your Java brown and you add your wood grain brush strokes to the larger sections. It comes together really fast at this point. It is so easy to see it. I mean, you don't even need to have a vision anymore. It's in front of you. It's happening. It's working. It's looking great. I really don't want to talk too much more. I just want you to be able to enjoy the process. But I will say, you do have a lot of time to work with this stuff, especially since you're doing this indoors. So theoretically, you're not like in the sunlight. It's not going to dry right away. I came back, as much as 5 to 10 minutes later to touch up sections or to lighten out sections, and I was still able to work with the glaze. Something I personally did not need to do very much, but something you can do, is to have an extra dry brush on hand. And if you feel like you've applied too heavy, or you feel like it looks too streaky and you kind of want to tone that down, go over this with a dry, fluffy brush. That'll really help as well. I didn't have to use that approach on this section of the handrail. Who knows why? But later in the week, I was doing another section and guys, it was just looking bad. I don't know what I was doing wrong. So I just ran to the garage, grabbed a dry, fluffy brush, went back over it, solved the problem. It was super great. The stuff is really watery. I'll say that too. And if you put on like a heavy coat at once, you'll see this glaze kind of bead up together, almost as if you had just brushed water. Kind of cool, and it's very workable. So if you see it bead up like that, I don't want you to feel like, oh no, that's how it's going to stay. You can so easily just brush right back over it. I love this portion of the video, this clip right here where we're working on the column piece. Personally, I felt like that was the easiest and most satisfying to do, other than the very top horizontal surface of the handrail. I didn't really like doing the sides of the handrail. It was kind of hard where the top and the side met, kind of had a curved angle, and that was kind of hard. But this column piece, it just seemed so easy and effortless. It was very satisfying to do. Well, it took me a full week to complete the process on my entire stair rail, but I couldn't be happier with the transformation. This project added so much charm, warmth, and character to an otherwise cold and modern area of the home. When painting hard-to-reach areas, I used a handheld mirror to get a better view, but you can always opt for climbing a 20-foot ladder if that's your style. The polyurethane added a matte sheen, which is perfect for a wood look, but it also toned down the vibrance of the color, which I was not expecting, but I ended up liking. Let me know in the comments if you would like to try this technique anywhere in your home. I'm definitely going to be transforming my kitchen cabinets next, so stay tuned for that video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.